and welcome to Our People, the podcast where we give space for Holdeman Stories. We focus on hope, healing, and inspiration. Connection, consciousness, and love are the driving motivations for this project. Remember to have grace for those who have chosen to speak out and share their experience. Please enjoy the story you will hear today.
Hello, and welcome to Our People, the podcast where we give ex-Holdemans room to tell their stories. We're here with Laura today. Laura, do you want to go ahead and introduce yourself to us?
Yes, I'm Laura. I live in Tennessee. I'm from the Monterey area. And I left the Church of God and Christ Mennonite when I was 20 years old. I was 12 when we moved here to Tennessee. So I would have moved from the Walker, Missouri congregation.
Okay. You talked about leaving at 20. So I would like to hear your thought process, how you got to the place where you decided that this was not the way you wanted your life to go.
Well, I had been rebellious off and on for years in my teenage years. I guess when I was 17, I decided one summer on a day that I wanted to run away from home. I had my own car. My middle brother had co-signed with me to get the car. So I did have my own car, but I was prevented from leaving. They put a steering wheel lock on the steering wheel, and so I wasn't able to go anywhere. But I wanted to go stay with a friend in Indiana. She had moved up there. She had left the church, and she was living up there with her dad, who was not a part of the Mennonite church. That was when I was 17. But then I don't know, I just decided to stop that thinking, and I went back to, what I was told was I had needed to rededicate my life to the Lord and to the church. And so I straightened up and I started, doing all the right things again. And so when I was, I would have been 18, I moved to Missouri and I lived with my sister for 6 months from, January to July. And I worked in a greenhouse there that was owned by some church members. And I loved it there. I loved working in the greenhouse and going in the cold days in January and planting the seeds and little plants and stuff. And I really enjoyed that. And then in July, I went and worked. I moved to Heston, Kansas, and lived with an uncle and aunt there and worked at the Mound Ridge Manor. I started out as a dietary aide in the kitchen, and I really enjoyed that for the most part. And then I become the morning cook in the kitchen there, and that was a whole lot more stressful. Following all the dietary restrictions and cards and stuff. So, but I still enjoyed my job, and I had some friends there. I met some friends that we gotten really close with each other, because there was girls from all over there. I had a good friend from Canada, and had, one from Nebraska and one from, I think she was from Wisconsin. So anyway, and then I had cousins that lived there, and but it was a whole different, the youth group was so much different in central Kansas than it was from Monterey. So that was a little bit of a difference, a little bit of change. I struggled somewhat, I think, to fit in there. I've looked back on that, and I liked everybody there. I was just awkward. I was an awkward person. I never liked sitting across from the youth boys because that was awkward. You might have to talk to them. Um, anyway, so I don't know. I just kind of started getting a little bit discouraged with the church. when I was there in Kansas. And, we would remember my friend and I going to, I think, Newton, and we took off our Mennonite dresses and put on like pants and shirts, and we went to the movies, and just had fun, I guess, in a normal way. But and then it went a little further for me. I was going to move out from my uncle and aunt's house, and we were going to, a couple of us girls were going to get an apartment in Newton there. And my parents found out about that, and they came, and we had long conversations, and I decided, that I wanted my life. I remember telling them I just wanted my life to go back to what it was before. I didn't like the drama that I had caused, this big uproar, just caused a big scene. So I stayed there after that for a few more months, but then I went back home to Tennessee in January, the next year. So it'd been 2005. I went home, and I started a job here at home in Tennessee at an assisted living. So I had gotten some dietary aid work. I had that on my resume, that I'd worked in healthcare in the kitchen. So I did that here in Tennessee. Then started doing that, and I worked in a assisted living. But let's see, that year, by July, I had grown very discouraged with the church. I had started seeing a guy here in the community. His family was members, but he had never joined. And so we would, just go drive around by ourselves, and we went to the movies, and, of course, did things that shouldn't have happened as a member. I wasn't supposed to be doing those things. And I don't really know how all that, I quit going to youth. I decided to quit wearing my dress to work. I started wearing like a uniform type skirt and a white shirt to work. And so I kind of just started doing that on my own, and wasn't, hadn't really spoke to the ministers or anything about why I was doing all these things yet. So I quit seeing that guy, and for me it was just about, I don't know, I was searching for something. I had a few friends. I'm not saying I didn't have any friends, but I mean, I don't know, looking back, I was just a normal teenage girl. I wanted to have a boyfriend. I wanted to, go to the movies and things like that. And so eventually I was called in to speak with the ministers. I wouldn't speak, though. I just sat there. They kind of started putting words in my mouth. They said, well, you don't want to turn out like your older cousin, what she's left. And that hasn't went well. And then I got told, well, we hear that that's just Laura. She wants to go have a fling in the world. That was just, that's what I was hearing, I guess they perceived that that's what I wanted to do. Because I had been, the concerns that were given to me as a youth girl was that I dressed like the world. I would wear the high heels. I would wear the long skirt that was too tight, and I was, probably making somebody have sinful thoughts. So That's what I heard. So that's why the way they perceived me, that I was just, wanted to go explore the world. But they didn't really expel me right away. They put me on repentance, I think, for a while, but I quit going to church. What caused them to expel me was when I left with a guy who was a truck driver. I left with him and went to on a trip to Miami, Florida. So I'm sure they assumed that things had happened while I was gone. And I had left against of course, my mom and dad tried to stop me from going on this trip. But I decided I was going, and, looking back, horrible experience. I hadn't met this guy. We had talked on the phone, and he had Mennonite background. So I thought, well, he's safe. He comes from not the same type Holdeman like I was, but he had Mennonite background. So I thought I was safe. I was exposed to a lot of things on that trip that an innocent, ignorant Mennonite knew nothing about. A lot of deep scars from that, I remember. Took me a while to even process, I think, what had happened. But anyway, so I got expelled for that. And I just heard that, by way of my parents, that's why I had gotten expelled. So after that, let's see, I come home, and I did live at home with my parents for a while, but I eventually moved out within a year, and I lived with a friend and just stayed close around the area here in the community. But I guess my main reason today of telling my story is I believed I was going to hell. So I didn't care what I did. And I guess it breaks my heart that girls that leave, most of the time, there's something that causes them to have an unrest with that church, that something tells them they can't do it anymore. They physically can't do it anymore. And then you get told you're going to hell. So of course we do things that look stupid, that look like we're a big sinner, that we've thrown our life away. I left when I was 20, but I had probably the mindset of a 15-year-old, just dealing with everything and not being educated, not being told anything about anything, really. Anything outside in the world. We were told, no, you don't do this. So we were never taught about it. I feel like, why would you educate, their thinking was, why would we educate them on something that they're never going to experience? And, if they do, then they're on their own. You are on your own. And not that my family quit talking to me. They've always stayed in contact, and they've always loved me. I've never doubted for a minute that my family didn't love me. but it was like the guidance, the counseling that you would get from parents that care about, well, where are you at, and I know my mom would stay awake at night. I have no doubt. It was my mom's prayers that probably kept me alive a lot of times. But as far as like, I had a cousin that didn't grow up Mennonite. He told me, he's like, I saw, that your brothers, they kind of, he called it, he was like, well, they shunned you. And, we always tell it, like we're expelled, but that was his term, was that they shunned me. And that he's like, well, I felt like somebody needed to look after you. And he had moved here. This cousin had moved to Tennessee. So, I would be with him some, and I usually had, one or two girlfriends that I would be around, but that was it for a lot of years. I didn't have a lot of friends. I was figuring out who I was, what my identity was, because I had no identity. I didn't know who I was. And when you don't stand for something, you fall for anything. And I fell for a lot of things that, looking back, I've been like, how could you be so stupid, but, and also going back to the belief that if you leave, unless you come back, you'll be there's no hope for your salvation. That's it for you. So I've went through a long period of time where I didn't believe in God. I did a lot of things because I didn't believe in God. Inflicted a lot of my own trauma on myself. I've heard it recently that we allow ourselves to be abused in a way, by not being able to protect ourselves from some of that. If we don't recognize it, there's a, I don't know where all the fine lines of that are. I do feel like the more knowledge you have, the more self-aware that you are, a lot less abuse is going to happen. Verbal abuse, physical abuse, all of that. A lot less of that you're going to allow a lot less of that to happen in your life. But I just want to say, like, going back to the reason that I want to speak about this, my experience is, I've heard it said by some of my family members that have left. I've asked them, do you believe that you can be saved outside of that church? And she said, no, I don't think you can be. I just don't think you can be. I don't know how. And this was very soon after this person had left. So I'm hoping by now that that's not still a belief, and I told them, I said, is such a lie. You can't believe that. You can find God anywhere. It doesn't have to be in a certain, God is not limited to a certain group, to a certain, organization. And I guess actually, while I'm on that topic, I wanted to say that I had an experience this past year. I went on what's called a walk to Emmaus, and it talks about an encounter. It's basically a close encounter with God. And my husband had went, 2 weeks before I went. So after the husbands go, the wives need to go, because I thought this was crazy, but they would say that, well, you would be unequally yoked because of that, because they've, had this experience, and the wife needs to be on the same page. So I want to say, before I went, I was going through a lot of, my husband and I we'd been through a divorce and remarriage, and all of that, and a lot of coming out of an addiction, and so I was bitter and angry, and um, I was mad at about everybody. I was just mad at the world, and starting to try to find, I had started seeking the Lord, and but there was always this niggling in the back of my mind, like, well, to truly find God, you're gonna have to go back to the Holdemans. Like, that's what you got to do. And so I went to this experience, and I was mad that night. I got there, my name wasn't on the list. Um, I said, well, I'm not supposed to be here then. And I wanted, I told my sponsor and my husband, Chase, I wanted to go home. And the lady that was checking us in was like, oh no, you was supposed to be here. She said, look, I've got 29 right here, and there's no name. I left a blank for a reason. So she tells me I'm supposed to be there, and we couldn't have our cell phones. And I actually loved that fact of not having my cell phone. It was so nice to just have a weekend of quiet, not having to worry about work or family or, anything going on, just a weekend. But so I go to this weekend, and I'm thinking that, and I go through day one and part of day two, I think, and I spoke to one of he was called our spiritual director, and I said, I expressed my concern and gave him a little bit of my background, and he said, well, let me tell you something. He said, there is no church that can say that they have a monopoly of God. No one can claim hold on the Lord. Like, you can't, it don't work that way. You can't take hold and say, only right here. And I walked away from him, and I was like, that sounds like the most logical explanation. Like, why couldn't I have thought about that? Like, I don't know why that, I mean, God had walked through me for the past 19 years of my life. Every step of it, I've looked back, and God was always there. He never left me. I thought that I had left him. He never left me. He was literally always there. And but so I did have an encounter that weekend on this walk to Emmaus. I mean, I laid down things that I thought I could never be free of. I laid down one day we were supposed to, I don't want to give too much away in case anybody wants to go on this, and it's an experience. But one day we were, told to go to the foot of the cross there, and lay it down, like, just give it up, just offer it up and say, this is it. And I remember thinking, this isn't gonna work. Like, I don't see, the logic in this, really. It was like that doubt was still always there. But that night, I don't know, I couldn't really go speak to any of the clergy people and the ministers. I just felt, I don't know, I've just not been able to speak to people like that. I guess I've had a bad experience, maybe once or twice in my life. But anyway, so I found a friend that I had made that weekend, and her and I sat down on one of the back benches of that old church. It was an old historic church with like beautiful stained glass windows, and we just sat down there and we started talking. And come to find out, her and this girl and I had walked through a lot of the same situations in life. Like, we had dealt with a lot of things that were similar, and she shared with me, she said, I don't think I would have been able to share this with, really anybody else here this weekend. But and I thought, that's it right there. I found God sitting on the back bench of this old church in the middle of town with a girl that she didn't even know me. She just sat there and talked with me and prayed with me. And we had this connection, that we called it, they told us these were divine appointments. And that weekend for me was a divine appointment. Like, I can go and trace back so many things that have happened since then, that God's brought people into my life that I would have never imagined possible. Like, I've started to be able to heal from my past. I've been able to lay things down. I feel like I've been able to, like, love in a healthy way, because I didn't know how to love. I felt like I didn't know how to love people, even my own kids sometimes, which was really hard. Um, but just the overwhelming love that God has shown to me, that no, I don't deserve anything. I don't deserve anything. I don't deserve reconciliation of my family, my husband, that we were able to get back together. I didn't deserve to have that family back. But he wanted me. He wanted me to have that, because he wanted me to have a good life. We're not just put here to just struggle through life and just wait for the ultimate hope of heaven. Life isn't supposed to be a struggle. It's not, you're supposed to be joyful. The joy of the Lord is our salvation. And so this year, since February, has just been one thing after another, of just so many things of, I will look back and I'm like, I can't believe it seems like it's been 4 years. It's all the things that have happened, and I've been able to mature. In my mind, I'm finally able to start maturing. Um, I'm getting to where I'm hoping I can catch up with my age. I don't think I ever will, but and that's fine. I don't worry about that anymore. A lot of being so overly concerned about what people think has fell off of me, because I'm the only one that gets to live my life, and I only get to live it one time. So, all of this of, I'm so worried I'm gonna, hurt somebody, or, hurt their feelings, or I don't know if I've said the wrong thing, or I've gotten, tied up in a lot of that thinking for years, of not being free from that. So conscious of what everybody's thought about me. And I've given them a lot to talk about. I've kept him pretty busy over the years of things to talk about. So I guess it's about time that they can talk about me and say, well, I think it's turned out okay for her. But so I guess I'll go back to a little bit of the years of when I was growing up um, in the Mennonite Church. I don't have a lot of memories when I was a very small child. I'm a lot of that is I don't remember a lot of it. We lived on a farm. We had cows and pigs, and we had crops, wheat and corn, and remember stuff like that. But so childhood was a good one, really. You know, we lived on a farm. We could ride. We had a pond, so you know we could go wade in the pond. I remember wading in the pond in the mud and stuff in the pond. I remember that, and we could walk down to or not walk. We would ride. My brothers and I would ride our bikes to a creek right down by our house. We would go down to the creek and get in the creek, and so childhood memories. I have a lot of good childhood memories. Of things like that. You know, I love cats. So the cats was me and the cats would go play up in the hay barns. And so that was fun. And I remember playing out, and you know, I had um an old chicken house that had a playhouse in, and I made mud pies all the time. And mom would give me her old spices, and so I would make mud pies with spices and mud. And you know, I played by myself a lot. My older sister was 7 years older than me. So, and she was married by the time she was 18. So we never, you know, really had a close relation. Not that it was bad, it just she was a lot older than I was. Um, so I do have lots of good memories, you know, as a kid, as far as that goes. Home life was, I guess, on the outside, we looked okay for the most part. We were poor, but there's nothing wrong with, you know, being poor. Um, we struggled just like every other American family. Um, so, uh, but then, I don't know, I guess I could have been between the ages of 9 and 10. A family member of mine started doing things to me that to be honest, I don't really know. I didn't know what was going on. I didn't know what sex was. I didn't know anything about human anatomy other than, you know, what I had pretty much. Um, but he would stick his hands down my underneath my dress if we were sitting down, or you know, out somewhere private. You know, he would stick his hand up my dress and mess with me. Um, and you, you know, looking back, you know, I've been told that happens a lot. You know, that's normal behavior. Kids explore each other. That's just what they do. And I understand that is normal for, you know, kids don't really, you know, they do things because they don't know what's going on. But for me, I felt like when that happened, I knew it was wrong. I knew I shouldn't be letting them do it, but I knew this person well, and I loved him, and I allowed it to happen. And I don't know, you know, what was going on in our home too, as far as if we were real happy at that time, because I feel like now that I've gotten older, if kids are in, I'm not saying it can't happen, but if kids are happy, if they're stable, if they're loved in a healthy way and have healthy people around them, that if this happened to a young girl at that age, they'd be like, "Hey, mom, you know, like I don't know what's going on here, but this was really weird." Like it would be one and done, you know. And I just feel like if I had done that, you know, and it wouldn't have kept happening. Um, but it stopped happening after this person told somebody that this was going on. He said that he was. Anyway, I'm not going to go into a lot of detail. I do respect the people, my family, and I love them very much. So I'm not going to say a lot. But anyway, it stopped after the staff found out about it, and they questioned this person, and it stopped. And then I found out in recent years that I've been an adult that I didn't really ever talk about it. I didn't say what was going on, so they didn't know. My parents didn't know what was going on. But it stopped, and I don't ever remember it happening again. I do remember one time, I would have been several years older after that point, but I told a girl at school, we were running in, I think off the softball field or something, and we were by ourselves, so I just told her a little bit, and she just laughed she laughed about it and was like, "Are you sure? Are you sure that's what's going on?" And, you know, um, I don't know. Anyway, but I didn't talk about it for years and years and years, and, I guess so in my subconscious, though, I think this is a lot. The things that happened back then, triggered this feeling of I never felt good enough. I felt like there was something wrong with me, um, because this had happened, and we were supposed to, um, we was supposed to be so pure and was godly. We were very godly people, and I knew this. Um, Even as a young girl, I mean, obviously, uh, looking back, I don't know that I knew much about the Bible, but I knew that we were godly, and the scriptures were always read at home. That was, of course, a thing. Daily devotions. We had daily devotions and scriptures, but I never really grasped the concept of um, Jesus dying on the cross for me. I don't think that was ever something that I fully understood. And when I was 14, I was baptized into the church. I do not think I had a heart transformation in that time. I don't think I ever really felt completely saved. I do remember one morning at school, that day, we were singing in the hall or in fellowship hall or something right there. I remember looking at a bunch of tracks while we were singing. But I remember feeling like if I would die right then, like I would go to heaven. Like I felt that way. Like I felt like at that moment I was saved. But that was really the only time I can say, like, without a shadow of a doubt. I just felt like I was always, something was wrong with me. I was doing something that I shouldn't do. I was wearing something that I shouldn't wear, as far as that goes too. Uh, I just felt like um, nothing I could do was just good enough. I was puffing my hair too high. I was wearing a belt that was too wide. Shows my age. We still wore these big wide belts and poofed our hair up in the front, and anyway, um I remember my dad saying we need to put some oil on that hair, just tame it down, so I was used to hearing things like this of just, you're not supposed to be pretty. You don't be pretty. It's not what we do. And so I think there was a lot of times when I would get told that I was looking like the world, I was dressing like the world. Uh, that was the main concerns that they would have. The main concerns they would have on me in that way. Um, And so I was never, I don't know that I ever really got caught with anything as far as, radio. I did at some time have a radio, but I don't think that I ever really got caught with that. But anyway, I guess going back and looking at all that, since leaving the church, there's so many things, that I know. Looking at it now, I know I had to go through that. I know I had to go through some of the hardships that I did, heartaches. I was married to somebody, my first time, somebody I'd met in a bar soon after I turned 21. We knew each other for about 2 months, 2.5 months before we got married. I was living with him. I'd moved in with him. I lived with him and his mom and dad. And his mom was kicking us out. We were getting our own place. She was getting rid of us. So we were going to get our own place. And I was going to go get my stuff from my parents. I had, the Hope chest. I had, I had all my clothes and my bedroom furniture and stuff. And so I was going to go get all this. Well, they said they didn't want to allow me to take that and move in with this person because we were not married. And so my husband, he wasn't my husband, my boyfriend was like, well, we're planning on getting married next year anyway. And we had already, I mean, it was very quick, very sudden. He did say, he had already started talking about us getting married the next year. So we just decided to go ahead and get married. So we, wonderful reason to get married. So we had a very small wedding in like his step grandpa's front yard. And with, it was the only people that were there for me was I had my cousin, and the one that had moved here. And then a couple I think there was 4 friends for me. And so on my side, that was all I had. And that wedding was, I had got the call the night before from my family members, why are you doing this? We're supposed to be having our big family supper tonight on the night before you get married, and none of us can be there. So they was giving me all of this guilt trip the night before this wedding. And I can't say that I didn't love this guy. We didn't know each other. We'd been together for a couple months, and that was it. Before we got married. But that marriage ended. We were together about 3 years, no children. And then I'm married to Chase now. And so we got married. We got together fairly soon after the first marriage ended. So it was like a cycle, for me, that I didn't want to be alone. I couldn't be alone. I didn't know how to be alone. I had, from the time I had left that church, I had always had, a boyfriend. So we started, he was active military. My current husband, Chase, was active military when we first started talking to each other. So we would write letters. We'd talk on the phone, and he would come home on his 4-day weekends and come and see me. So he'd fly all the way home from Colorado, and wasn't really supposed to be leaving his base there in Colorado. But he'd come home to see me. So that, and deal with a long distance relationship, it was hard. So we actually broke up in that time. And so we were separated, I don't know, or we were, broken up for a couple months. And he came home on the last deployment that he would have had in the military, in the Army. He came home from Iraq on his last time there. And so when he was home for those 2 weeks, I worked with his mom, and he came into work, to see his mom. And I went over and tapped him on the shoulder. And anyway, we ended up getting back together, and we stayed together till he came. I went out there when he got out of the Army and helped him move all his stuff home and rode with him. And anyway, so we dated for, let's see, about 4 years, I think. We would have been together until we got married. We got married in 2013 then. And this time I decided I wanted to have a church wedding. So we got married in a church, but we had our reception somewhere else. I thought maybe, by at least having it in a church this time, that was going to be giving me a little more of a chance there that would make it. So, so we got married in 2013, and we're alike in a lot of ways, but very different in other ways. Two completely different backgrounds. Just we've had to learn how to deal with each other's families. For a long time he didn't understand my family. And I didn't know how to explain it to him sometimes. So he just learned by observation. And they have a good relationship now. I think sometimes they like him, they love him more than they care for me, but I know that's not true. But he he's definitely my grandma's favorite. But he's adjusted very well to my family, and he loves my family a lot. I mean, I feel like they welcomed him as their own son in the last several years. He's become, they've just really brought him in and treated him more like family. I guess this time they realize he's not going anywhere, or he don't need to. Because we did have him and I actually, let's see, fall of 2022, we separated. Our marriage had gotten really on the rocks. Just a lot of drinking, a lot of things going on, that addictions that we couldn't lay down, pretty much was what started our initial marriage problems. And we fell into a lot of things that, because of unhealed things from our past. He had lots of things he was dealing with from his childhood. He had addiction ran in his family. And then, he had been in the military, so he had things from being in Iraq and in overseas, and dealing with that. And I had a lot of things dealing with my childhood that I had never processed. I just kept stuffing it all down and saying that this is just going to go away. And I had even been told by somebody, after I'd shared my experience, that you just need to let this fly away with the wind. You just need to let it fly away with the wind. That's really all there was to do with it. It's the only thing that, she knew to do with it. And, I was given a book that the church had written about things like this. I think it was like walking through Psalms 123, if I'm correct, or something like, don't quote me on that, but something like that. And so I read it, and a lot of it did, it made sense, but it didn't go into the detail of what I have learned since of what it takes to get over your traumas. And I had to actually face that I did have trauma, that what had happened to me was a trauma, and that it was something that I needed to deal with if I was ever going to become a healthy adult and not keep falling back into this coping mechanisms, with whatever it was, smoking, drinking, whatever, I could find sometimes. So I've, started walking through a lot of healing, a lot of inner healing. And a lot of it is being open and honest with what we're dealing with. And it's embarrassing. It's sometimes you think, well, people, they're they're never going to look at me the same if I say this, like it's just, and some might. There's that thing that some people might, and I'm okay with that. I've become okay with, it's okay if people don't understand me, if people don't, you know why I do the things I do, or, say the things I say or whatever. It's okay. Like that's fine. I want to be a better person. I want to be healthy. And for first and foremost, I want people to know that it was Jesus that did it. That it's not for me, coming to the realization that I can walk through inner healing and realize that Jesus has already paid the price for me. Like, I don't have to do anything else anymore. I don't have to try and go to get, a lot of this new age therapy and medicine. And I'm not saying medicine don't have a place in it. I've been on some myself. So I'm not saying that that's, a wrong thing, but facing the truth, my truth for me was that my healing was basically facing the things that I have done, that I have caused, the actions I've done, the actions I've taken, the people that I've hurt. I can't blame anybody for that. I can't blame anybody for the way I am. When it comes down to it, I am responsible for my actions, and only me can change myself. Nobody else can change you. You have everything within yourself to be able to change yourself and heal through Jesus's blood that he shed for us. And nobody can take that away from you. No church can tell you that you're deceived, because I've gone through that now. I've been rebaptized. I got rebaptized just a couple weeks ago, and I was reluctant to tell my family. My mother was very supportive of me, and my dad is somewhat, I guess. I don't know. I've not talked with him in depth about it, but I was reluctant because, we've heard it for years that everybody that leaves is deceived. Well, so I just knew I would be told that I was deceived and blah, 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 and all this. Well, I don't care anymore because I'm not deceived. I know in my heart uh, what I believe and what I know. And nobody on this earth can take that away from me. So a lot of it for me has just self-awareness, knowing who I am in Christ, being able to walk through the painful past with, trusted people, and knowing that that it's okay. Like, I don't have to be a lot of times I would set myself apart. I'll have to say, like, I would say, I know I'm weird, like, I know I'm different, whatever, you know. And I would almost like apologize for taking up space in somebody's life, or apologize for, I don't know. I felt like I was a problem, for so long in it, and just so realizing that I can step into my authority. I do have authority to be who God created me to be. And it's not anything that even your most trusted pastor can tell you. It's something you learn through reading the word, through discovering this on your own, through you, and it's between you and God. It's nobody can tell you how to do it. And it was like I waited for years for like this physical, I'm not saying like a physical savior, but it was like I wanted somebody to save me from myself. Um, and so I looked for it in all the wrong places, looking for love in all the wrong places, and I did it. And learning that until I heal myself and until I'm okay with being in my own skin and knowing just who I am, that I don't even know how to describe it. Like, just knowing that I'm fine exactly who I am, and I don't have to be what anybody else, even my own husband, thinks that I need to be, like, just being me and being who God created me to be, that I'm finally ready to live. I've went through suicidal thoughts. My boys, through a lot of the time of my separation, my boys were the only ones that kept me going. I don't know if I would have actually been brave enough to do in my own life, but there were times when I sure thought that would have been easier than what I would be going through. Um, but it was always in my mind. I would never want them to live without them knowing, like, with them knowing that their mom left their life by her own action. That thought would keep me from, like, and honestly has drove me to find my healing, to um find joy, because I've went through a lot of years of being unhappy and just like a deep dark pit, basically. And dealing, just realizing too that they deserve better for a mom than somebody who can't get past the past, that just lives in that mindset of something's wrong with me. Mama, my oldest son, he has comforted me. He's like, "Mommy, why are you crying? What's going on?" And then I'm like, "Well, this is not the way a kid needs to be living their life. I want to be strong for him. He needs a strong person." And so going back to how Chase and I got back together, I had moved out of our home as at where we lived as married, and I had lived in a junky old single wide trailer. But for a time it felt like my peace. I could go there, and I was just, the fighting had stopped with my husband, and I was able to just like find some peace. Um and but I mean, I wasn't happy. I missed my boys a lot, and then I started right back down a dark path of um a lot of heavy drinking, a lot of trying to fill a void, and I was lonely, and you do things when you're lonely, and that you shouldn't be doing. And so it was like I caught myself. I had been out, I think 2 nights this one weekend. I didn't have my boys, and I had been out and, gotten home late and just had a awful night, really. I mean, it was no longer the partying for me. It was like no longer fun anymore. It was just dangerous almost. So I had gotten home, and the next day I was just like, this is it. I cannot do this. And I'm putting myself in situations where I'm not safe. My boys don't, need a mother that's living this life. And I was still cleaning the church that my husband and I had attended. And I cleaned there a lot. I cleaned there for several years. And so I was cleaning this church. It was the day before Easter of 2023. And I was just, I don't know, I was mad. I felt like everybody was on my husband's side, because it's his family and friends that lived here. And so of course they're going to be on his side. And so I sent him this hateful message. I was like, well, you win. You win. I get it. You win. And he's like, he was dumbfounded. Like, I don't understand what you're saying. I've won here. you know, he's told me later, that in his mind, he was like, he had lost his family and his wife. And so he hadn't won. And, but in my perception of it was that I had, just nobody, and, he had all this support. And he told me to come over that afternoon. He told me just come over and see the boys. He could tell I was having a rough afternoon. So I came over to the house here, and we sat down and we started just talking, like normal, without the fighting and without us being at each other's throat and just, being mean. And anyway, so we just had like a normal conversation and talking to each other. And we ended up getting back together. We went to church the next day with the boys. We both went to church, and we went to the family gathering. His family did not know that we were back together. They just, thought that I was coming to be with the boys on Easter. But that's when we got back together. We did not move in together with each other right away. I stayed in my own place for maybe 2 weeks. I don't even know if it was 2 weeks after that. And of course, I had some friends tell me it was too soon to be getting back together. I needed to wait till we had changed and fixed things. And honestly, I don't think we've talked about this. We don't know, was it the best idea to move right back in with each other that soon? Probably not. But we do things backwards, and we learn the hard way. We have to go through it. We know it's not for us, and we learn by our mistakes. We have to make them ourselves a lot of times. And so things were pretty good for a while. We would go out on dates, from the time we started seeing each other until I moved in. We would go out on dates. We would not talk about our past, really, about what had happened while we were separated. We just kind of let that be, and we just would have nice dinner together, and we'd have a nice night, and I would go home, and then we kind of kept it like that, like we were just actually dating somebody. Well, then one night, I was here, and I had told the boys I was gonna be here, stay the night here at home and I would be here the next morning when they woke up. Well, Chase and I got into it, and we had a big fight. I had confessed about something I had been doing while we were separated, and who it was. And so this was while drinking. So the drinking escalated. Things got pretty bad. Anyway, he told me to leave, to go home. And our relationship was never going to work. We were never getting back together. This was it. And I needed to leave, and I needed to go home. So I left. Finally, I got in my car, and I left, and I got to my trailer, and it was still cold. It was cold outside, but I remember going to my front porch and just crying. Like, I hadn't cried out to God in honestly years. Like, I had went through the whole stage of he's not real, he doesn't exist. There's no way that God can even be real. So I pretty much just, like, not that I ever like quit believing, like deep down, I always think I knew that God was real. But for the first time in years, I was able to I just cried out to God. I stood there on my porch, like chain smoking my cigarettes. And I said, God, this song kept running through my head that I had heard. It was, take this broken life and take this broken life I bring and make it a beautiful offering unto you. And I just kept saying that, for him just to take all this brokenness and to start making something out of it. And I decided that I had told my boys that I was going to be there in the morning when they woke up. So I got in my car and I came back over here, and it still wasn't good here at the house, but I just finally went to bed after a while, and I crawled in bed and went to sleep, and everything somehow looks better in the morning after you sleep on things. But it wasn't great in the morning still. We left and went on our separate ways. I remember having a doctor's appointment, and so I went to my doctor's appointment, and Chase texted me and told me to come back to the house. He wanted to talk to me. Well, so he had this whole thing that he had done while I was gone. He, I guess, had encountered this person that I had saw, and so, but he said that he was willing to let it go, and that we could continue seeing each other, but I needed to move in. So I moved back in that day. And everything always moves quick for me, it seemed like. But I moved back in, and I don't know, I'm not saying we weren't happy, because we were. I was very happy to have my husband back and to have my boys under the same roof. But things were still really, we weren't healed people yet. We were drinking a lot. Things were we were living together, and our family was restored, but we still had a lot of things to process from all of it. The way our married life had gotten, and then everything that happened while we were separated. And so it would seem like we would do okay for a while, and then the drinking would cause it to get dangerous and volatile. So I got to where I just almost dreaded the times that we were at home alone. So anyway, But this last February, getting to when it changed was one night, it got bad again, like really bad. And we were like a cycle. Like we would talk in circles. We would just round and round and round and round, and nothing would change. And so that the morning after that night, I woke up and I said, something has to change. Something has to be different. I've got to find some help for us. So I called the woman that had been giving us the marriage counseling. And I said, I need help. I need somebody to help us with the situation. So we proceeded to start going to addiction recovery meetings. In-house, was not going to work for my husband. And so we started going to those once a week. I've never been to an actual AA meeting, but these were more of like dealing with the reasons we want to medicate with the alcohol, like what's going on. Like, so we would have group discussion about our life, like real life stuff. We would talk about that. So those were hugely instrumental in us healing and coming away from that. And anyway, so that started this in-depth healing process that's happened in the last few months that I was talking about earlier, of us learning how to deal with what's going on in our life, getting rid of the childhood traumas, the addiction, not medicating with things, learning how to heal. I'm not medicating with alcohol is what I mean. So walking through all of that, and just coming away from dealing with it, using these coping mechanisms that are very short term, that usually leave you in worse shape. So learning how to deal with that has just been like this huge life changer. I mean, my husband and I can both tell you that we've never lived the life that we're living right now. I mean, it's amazing. It's not every day is good. We're not going to have all good days, but walking every day with the Lord, and like just having an open relationship with knowing that Jesus is always right there for us. And we have a wonderful, supportive church family. We kind of have two that support us. And so we've just come to this wonderful, like, communion with people that we have never experienced before in our life. And, whereas we would always feel like we were outsiders, that, if they only knew what we were really like, they probably wouldn't like us. And we've been able to talk with, share with our friends now, about real life stuff, and they don't turn us away. And we're just, blown away that can happen. Like, you can talk about things in a way, and people aren't gonna say, oh, you're too bad for us. We don't want to hang out with your kind. So I'll have to say that the last several months of my life, like going through everything I went through, I see why I had to go through it. And not that it was supposed to happen, but going through it has made me become the person that I am today, that I can, and even being able to talk about my past. I would have never been able to talk about that without being bitter and very resentful. And I, just saying that I wanted the organization to burn. I don't hate any of the people anymore. I've forgiven everybody. I actually have a love for them. I feel like if situations were different, there would be some of my family that would not be a part of that church anymore. I really do. And but they don't know any different. That's where their safety is. They say they don't know where they would be without the church. Um, and so with that mindset of you don't know where you would be without this, has that's going to keep you there. So anyway, I think I'm about done though. I guess one last thing I do want to, if there's anybody that went through, what I did, where you think that there's no hope for me as far as being saved, like, I just want you to know that is not the truth. It's a lie to keep you in an organization where they can still continue to control you. And it's a lie, because I found God in a way that I never thought was possible. And I just want you to know that there's hope, and you don't have to go through the things that are put on you that are said that are gonna happen. Because if you go into it with that mindset, a lot of it will happen, because it did. I didn't get pregnant though, but a lot of the other happened. So I think I'm about done.
Okay. Thank you for sharing with us.
Yes.
And like you were saying there at the end that, okay, well, no, your whole story in there, that you
It kind
felt,
of went around and round. I'm sorry.
no,
I
it's
hope
okay.
I hope you can make sense of it.
I think we did. But that how you had said that, you felt like you were lost anyways, so why not just basically live your life? That is such a common misconception. And you
Yes.
said girls, and since I'm a female, I'm gonna go with that though too. Is, to me, the girls seem a lot more like that than
Yeah.
guys. And the guys, they if they feel that way, it comes out in a different way. But the girls, they end up just basically throwing their morals to the wind,
Yeah.
and on they go, because we're already lost according to everybody we've ever known and the way we were taught, which is
Yeah.
such a lie.
Yes.
And like that minister said, which I'm actually kind of surprised that they had you go on a female only Emmaus walk, and then they had male preachers there. I have not heard of that one yet, but okay. Anyways, so but like he said, that there's no church that has a monopoly on God. There is no
No.
church, there is no religion, there is no group, there's no club, there's no anything that has a monopoly on God. And to think that humans can claim that is so ludicrous.
Yeah. I mean, I've done I've done some research, on the spiritual abuse, and that's all. I've had the book, I had it on my Kindle at one time, that book called Spiritual Abuse. I think there's a book called that or something like that. Um, but I had started reading that, and I do think that's definitely what it is, hands down.
Yes, it's a way to keep people buying into that narrative.
Mm-hmm.
You know, um, I always wonder what they think happened to that verse in the Bible where they talk about the curtain being rent into. They sew it back together.
That's right. I know it was a lot. It was a lot of different years and running together of stuff.
It's okay.
Yeah.
It's your story. That's the thing. But, you know, okay, so talking about substance abuse, alcohol, things like that. That is unfortunately another reality
Yeah.
that happens, and that is the one that I see the males that leave the Holdeman Church turn to a lot is alcohol. And it's probably our own biases that actually bring that out and things like that. The boys turn to alcohol, the girls turn to immorality.
Yeah.
And then, but bringing it, the curses that are spoke over us, and that basically it's a pre-programming that this is what you're going to turn out to be like our editor says, which is just hilarious to me. Where are all these sex and drug parties that I was never invited to, that I was supposedly going to be
Really?
going to? I mean,
I mean,
what happened
yeah.
to my invitation?
Yeah.
Because
Well,
that's
they're
a lot.
out there if you start looking for, but that's a whole nother
Right,
thing.
but it's not like we get invited and we're going.
No,
No, I've
no.
never been to one.
Yeah,
So
I mean the first people I started hanging out with, I mean, we went to Dollywood. We would go to, like just church trips and stuff. That's what
things they do now.
what's that?
Things they do now.
Yeah. Oh, I don't know, I guess. Well, good for them. Yeah, good. I say that I go into that. Yeah, I have seen the church loosening up on a lot of things. The things that I got told were yeah.
Okay,
Yeah,
exactly.
that's lessening up.
So, yes, absolutely. The church has changed a lot. And I know that there is a struggle not to have hard feelings towards that.
Yeah.
Like, well, we would have gotten expelled for that. But the truth of the matter is we chose to leave that religion because, we didn't have the autonomy to be ourselves. And I still don't think they have the autonomy to be themselves. But it has loosened up on a lot of those things that we would have been expelled for immediately. They're not even looked at anymore. So good. To us, that's
Yeah.
progress. That's exactly what we fought for.
Oh, absolutely.
And so I left 21 years ago. And my sister just left 2 years ago.
Oh, wow.
And, I always say that, what? I fought that battle for 20 years. Now you take the torch and you fight, because she's like, well, this is injustice, and this is injustice, and this is injustice.
Yeah.
I fought for 20 years. I'm tired. You fight now. You
No,
take what I settled for and you fight against it, because I'm cool with that. And I think that's how it's meant to be.
yeah. Well, I honestly, I mean, what good or what ground are we gaining by fighting about it? Even like talking, saying anything is, do you know what I mean? Like the little stuff that they're doing now.
Oh,
Like,
why be upset about it?
yeah,
Exactly.
why be upset? That's what I'm saying. Like, why be upset about this little piddly stuff that we see? It's
We want them to grow and to evolve. So
yeah.
why would we complain about the growing and evolving? Just because we want to stamp our foot and be like, well, we didn't get by with that. Well, good. That means the fighting I did gave you some leeway.
Yes.
You're welcome.
Yeah. Yes, absolutely. And I think the more that honestly, what I would want to see, the main thing, and I don't know, maybe some of this is happening more so, is that the young kids do have some type of sexual education in their school system. Not left up to the mom and dad, because it won't happen.
Okay,
But
no, I'm fine with the parents doing it, just the fact that it needs to be done. Like, it's not left up for interpretation. It needs to be done. And it
oh,
needs to be
absolutely.
done. See, okay, I think that it needs to be done by the parent. Can you imagine an 18-year-old teacher trying to educate you about anything like that? And
Well,
no,
that's true. I do see your point on
and I
that.
don't want it done by the ministers either. That is not their place.
No,
There are
I guess
separate.
my theory or thinking is, if it's left up to the parents, are some parents not going to do it?
How about it become mandatory? Because it should not be done by the staff. That is not their children.
No,
And there have
absolutely.
been so many inappropriate questions asked by the staff to young girls for sure. That is sexual abuse and spiritual abuse, and it needs to stop.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I don't think young girls should go in to meetings without their parents anymore. For that matter, young men either. Their parents need to go with them.
No, I definitely
Not
not.
getting anybody, I don't care, from 10. Actually, if you're not married, your parents go in with you to the meetings. And
yeah, not being married.
Listening to me, and you have a child or you are a child, you either go in with your children or you take your parents with you to the meetings. You can request that. There is nothing wrong with that. That is stopping any kind of spiritual abuse that could possibly go on. Hopefully, anyways.
Well,
but the speed bump, anyways.
Yeah. Yeah, it would, because they'll be a lot less likely to say things, around the parents.
Inappropriately.
I've even noticed, and this is something that I've been thinking, if it happens again, that I want to address is, I've let my kids go to Bible school this past summer, and they went, because they get invited. And so they went 3 nights, but I noticed, there's a country store up here, in Muddy Pond that we go to. And I noticed that their Bible school teachers, well, my oldest son told me that it had been his Bible school teacher. She works there. And so she had come over and was saying hi to Sam. And I was walking over there because I was going to say hi to her. About the time I started walking over there, though, she quits talking to him and turned her back and went around the counter. And I was like, oh, wait. I mean, she's a young girl. I don't know how old she is, maybe 17, 18. But I thought, why do you think it's okay for you to have a conversation with my son just because he was, but you can't sit there and have a conversation with me? I didn't really think about it, but then I got home and I was like, that's not okay either. Like, you can at least acknowledge me and say hi to me, even if you don't know me, because I'm old enough now that none of the kids would have, that are teenagers in that church now, remember me being a part of that church. So they don't know who I am. They've just heard about me.
So you actually make our point for us. My husband's parents are still Holdemans, and they invited our children to Bible school and asked several times. And finally, I told my husband, you're gonna have to take care of this. Like, you're gonna have to talk to them as to why we are not going to send our children. And so one morning he went in and he said, hey, I just, I want to let you guys know we're not sending our children to Bible school. He said, and the reason why is because he has a son. And he said, that is my biggest regret. And how I feel like I failed him the most was by sending him to Mennonite school. He actually went to Mennonite school all 8 years and stuff. He said, because it is taught, I get it's not taught openly, but it is absolutely taught that ex-Mennonites, ex-members are less than, they are subpar, he said. And so that is what my son grew up learning, that he didn't have to listen to me because, I was less than what he's, less than a member, less than anybody that's in the church. And he says it has impacted his life tremendously and given him a lot more problems than I think that he would have had he never caught that. And he goes, I guess his parents were like wanting to say, oh, no. And he said, no. He goes, I get that it's not taught in words. He says, but it is absolutely taught, because you guys, I even knew that when I was a child, that ex-members were less than we were. They were less than humans.
Well, and I've watched the evolution of the avoidance at the table. I was used to when I first left the church, I was sat in the kitchen, at the counter. Me and my husband were sat, or before I was married, I was sat at like a little bar in the kitchen by myself. The family table would be in a big room. There was no possible way of having a conversation with the big table of people unless you were leaning over your shoulder and looking at them. It was that definite of a distinction. It was not a 2-inch gap between the table. It was you were at the bar, they were at the big table. And my husband is like, and this was even before we had kids, he's like, I don't know why we keep going. And and I was like, I really don't know either, but I would always feel like so guilty, like it's my family, it's my brothers, and it's my mom and dad. They've came all the way from, after they moved to Missouri, they would come all the way here back to Tennessee. I was like, they've came all that way. And so in the letters that I told, I don't think I mentioned this during the recording, but the letters that I had sent my mom and dad, I mentioned that about the table and all of that. And it changed after that. We were being able to at least sit close to the table. It went from, the little counter, and it varied from home to home what happened. But it went from being at the little bar in the kitchen to a table almost connecting to the big table, to now it's as long as they don't set the serving dishes on the table, it's okay. So it's like if you eat family, they call it cafeteria style, where you just go get your food and you sit down. So that's changed over the years too.
Okay, so the progression for me was they sat me at a tray table. There at the table. I still sat in my same spot, but just on a tray table. And then one night my dad said that somebody from the congregation had talked to him and had said maybe they needed to set me further apart, which meant in the living room. Okay, I was tired from a day of work. Okay, I busted up bawling. And I said, in that case, why don't you go ahead and sit me in the living room and give me a TV dinner, because that's all I'm worth, right?
Yeah.
And needless to say, that never came up again, and they never sat me in the living room.
Yeah.
And then slowly but surely, like it inched closer, and after I had my daughter, no, okay. Well, I say after I had my daughter, but that was because at Christmas time I went home. And by the way, I had my daughter as a single woman. Thank you very much. And
Way to go.
Fine. Thank you with it.
Yeah.
I was like old, like 34 and a half, 35 and a half, but that was cool. I didn't mind. Anyways, but
no, that's awesome.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
So but I remember that Christmas, that for like she was 1 year old. But at Christmas they sat me there at the table because it was my mom and my dad and my grandma and myself, and then my little girl was right here. Anyways, but then I got married and to my now husband, who's also an ex-Mennonite. Anyways, and they would sit us, as long as it was just my family, we would sit at the table with them. But then I remember that at my folks, one holiday, I'm assuming, all of the family was coming over. So my dad came to me and he said, hey, he said, I don't know how my brothers are going to take it, so we are still going to sit you apart, which apart meant that we had a big, one of those big long, open tables. I mean, they stretched out.
Oh yeah, they sat like 20 people.
Right. Well, so they would keep just a space, like a 2-inch space between it was the same table. It just wasn't closed all the way. It was left open for putting the leaves in. And that was it. I was like, okay, Dad, that doesn't bother me. Perfectly fine. It's okay. So he did that, I think, that season. And after that, it has never been. We always sit at the table together.
Yeah. It's gotten that way for us too. And at first I was like, you don't know how to act. Like, how do you have conversation with them while they're eating? Because we've not been used to having conversation. And I mean, it's a whole thing now.
Okay, and I know I have said this on the podcast, but I'm gonna say it again. So one time though, in another lifetime, when I wasn't married to my husband and I didn't have a child and I was engaged to another guy and I lived
Yes.
in Phoenix, my family came out. And so we were gonna go to the Mennonite church for the first time. Apparently I'd never taken him there, even though we lived right down the road from it. And I grew
Right.
up in Phoenix. But anyways, so my folks came out to visit. And so I'm like, okay, well, we'll go to church. And then we were gonna go to dinner at one of my dad's cousins afterwards. And so I tried to prepare my fiance, but he was into the arts. So he just thought this was just a great adventure. We were gonna go. So we went to church and I told him, you're gonna sit on the guy's side and we're gonna sit on the women's side, but if you want to sit together, we can. I said, it's totally up to you. And he's like, no, that's okay. That's okay. I've got this. Like, I'll sit. Like, let's just do it their way. And I said, okay, no problem.
Yeah.
So we go to church and then we go to my dad's cousins afterwards and we had dinner and we had a little table that we sat on. And I mean, he was just so impressed when we then were with his family later. He's like, we were treated like royalty. He said, like, we had our own table.
Yeah.
Yes, we had our own like pitcher of tea, and our glasses never got empty, and they'd fill them for us. He said, and we got served first, like all the food came by us first. He said they were
Yeah.
right, they hand served us. He said, I mean, it was amazing. And he goes, but I think it was supposed to be like shameful. He said, but it wasn't. He said, so he was so impressed.
Yeah. That's just
Okay.
wonderful.
It
Yeah.
gave me a
I know my
totally different way to look at it.
yes. And my husband and I actually had that whole thing too. He was like, well, we also used to get set with the kids. Then I realized my nieces and nephews didn't like it. Like I was dirty Aunt Laura.
Oh,
So they was like, oh, we got to sit over there. Like they would want to sit at the adult table. And so then, then this whole thing goes through my head. Boy, my nieces and nephews don't even want to have anything to do with me. And so, yeah, I mean, they've grown up over the years, like who knows what they've heard about me. There is literally no telling all the things that they've probably been told about me. But it's funny how that, going back to the making it a different experience, the single table. We was like, so since we're at the kids table, why don't we bring some party stuff? Like, let's bring balloons, let's bring some blowers, let's, like those whistle things, that make noise, let's bring some party stuff and like let's make this a party over at the at the kids table. So,
good for you.
I mean, you may as well laugh about it.
So did they start liking it more?
No, we didn't do that. We just
Oh.
thought that it would be funny. We didn't do it though. No, we didn't do it.
Darn, that got me thinking. I just always thought that I was kind of cray-cray. So my nieces and nephews just, that's why that was, but darn, maybe it wasn't because I was cray-cray. Maybe it was because I was like not,
You really
not a
don't, you,
member. Wait, Lynn, what you doing shaking your head over there?
Kids are the worst. Kids are the absolute worst. Like the first time after I left Britt and left the church that I went to a school program, I had kids turn a full circle staring at me as I walked by. Just
They're not the worst. They're the most honest. And
Well,
they're
I know.
going with
Yeah,
what they
yeah.
were taught
But they make you feel the worst because everybody else hides it, but they are
because they're
just
honest. They
Yeah.
are honest. You'd be like,
Yeah.
well, now I know what your mom and daddy said about me.
Yeah, exactly.
I know. Or because kids listen to everything. So
Yeah.
like they maybe thought it was private, the mom and dad, that they were talking in private. The kids were probably right around the corner eavesdropping because I did that as a kid because we didn't have anything else to amuse us.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. But that's what my Aunt Mary told me one time. I was complaining about this notoriously. This woman that was such a gossiper. In fact, honest to God, I have never understood why was never expelled for gossiping. Okay, I'll just say it. Why was she never expelled for gossiping? So why in the world? My Aunt Mary told me though one time when I was complaining about it, she said, Amanda, that's all they have. That is the only entertainment they have. And you know, at the time I didn't know because I was newly gone. And so I just couldn't understand what the people what their problem was. But you know what? Now being gone 20 years later, I totally get that's all they have. Their
Yeah.
gossiping is the only fun they have. Who am I to take that away from them?
Yeah,
Y'all gossip on.
that's right, because it's just there's nothing, I think a lot of that has started changing too. I've saw and I'm happy for it. I'm like, you kids, you go snowboarding, you go traveling, you go do it, because honestly, you are already starting to break things down. You're getting out there, you're being around people that are more educated, that are more world traveled. So you're going to get more, just being in these places, you're going to get an education. You get education every time you travel. So I'm all for it. I'm like, you guys do it.
Yeah, absolutely. Here we have surfing because we're like an hour from the ocean.
Oh,
So,
okay.
yeah, our people go surfing over here, but good for them. They have
Yeah.
boats. Good for you. I'm so
That's
happy you
right.
have a boat.
Because back in our day, it was a sin to it was worldly entertainment, particularly to swim with mixed company. So,
Right. Lord,
I
now they
mean,
go to the beach. They do a lot more things and they go on vacations, mixed company.
oh,
And
yeah.
sometimes I'll hear the stories from my husband, like what he did when he was in the youth. And I was like, what? I was over there being all
Where
vanilla.
was
This
me?
is the
Where
stuff
was
you
I
did?
in that fun? Yeah, I know. When I lived in Kansas, the kids there, like, I was a goody two shoes compared to them. Like, I had no boyfriend. Um, Nobody, like, I was pretty much scared of boys. But they would give me a hard time about, I think it was the preacher's son. And I was like, I was thinking in my mind, I was like, I'll never be good enough for him. You know what I mean? Like, but anyway, yeah, I never really did stuff like that. Like, I think my mindset, and I heard it said, was, I heard somebody say, I push the boundaries sometimes, but I would never consider leaving. Because I asked him, I was like, why don't you just leave? Like, why don't you just go? Because that's how I got. I was like, and this was months before I even left, that I had voiced that. Because I think I would see it happening, that they would get in trouble. They would get found out for these things, and then they would have to go to these meetings and talk about what they had done, and it would be brought up as concerns. And I'd just be like, well, don't you ever just want to get the heck out of here? Like, you just want to go. And for me, that's what it was like, I just come to a point of, I knew I couldn't live that way anymore. And I wasn't going to try to do all those things. To me, it was being, I know I'm missing the word for it, but, deceptive. Like, I was living a double life if I was going to do that. So.
But yeah, I remember being 16 and looking in the mirror and saying, no, I was 15 when I looked in the mirror and said, you know what? I am going to live my life so I never have to look behind me. So
That's
that
right.
whatever I say, no matter where I am, in private, with a best friend, with anything, that whatever I say, that whatever comes out of my mouth, it's going, that I'll stand up in a public place and say it, that I can never be ashamed for
Yeah.
something I said.
Right.
And then I remember being 16 and standing in the mirror one morning when I was getting ready for work and saying, and I will not live exhausted like this all the time. And you know
No.
what? When I left the church, oh my God, I still lived at home, but I would go to bed at like 9 o'clock my parents would come in at 11 and I would wake up, hear them come because I was in the back part of the house to where the side door where we always parked and came in at. So I'd
Yeah.
hear them. And I would be like, oh, I've already been sleeping for a couple hours. Good for me.
Right.
You know, I would wake up while rested and go to work. But I hated that part of the culture that you were constantly exhausted because you had such a massive social life. And then I moved in with my sister and her family, who were still Mennonite at the time. When I had, because I was 7.5 months pregnant, and I moved in with my sister and her family,
Yeah.
and had my child over there. And I asked my now husband, I'm like, I don't know what these people are running from. They never stay home. Never.
Yeah.
I went to church. Part of the agreement of me staying with them was that I went to church Sunday morning. Not a big deal. I went to Sunday school with them and everything. But I would stay home Sunday nights by myself. Well, they went to church. And oh, the silence.
Yeah.
Catching up. I
It
was
was
like,
nice.
y'all want to join me?
Yeah.
But, but we all live and learn. And that's the
You
beauty
do.
of it all. So our experiences are all different. And the thing is none of us are finished learning. We're
No.
on our journey.
Yeah, I feel that way. Like I have so much to learn yet because I feel like I'm finally able to receive it. Like I can actually process it in a way that I can finally start learning how to live my life. There's this song, it's by Mercy Me, called Say I Won't, and you need to listen. Do you know it? You should look it up.
No, but I like Mercy Me.
Okay. Well, it's a fairly new one. So it's one I play a lot sometimes. And you'll know why when you see the lyrics.
I'll listen to it. I'm convinced that there's a song out there that says, basically that hold on, help is on the way, something, something, something. And I have asked my friend who I went to church for years with. They're actually Pentecostal, but they're not, jean skirts and hair up in it, but Pentecostal.
Yeah.
And but she ran the choir, and I'm like, isn't there a song like that? And she's like, no, there's no song like that at all. And so I'm like, okay, fine. Apparently it was made up in my head, but I'm telling you.
Yeah, well, there was this song too that I kept playing over in my head that weekend I was away. It said, it was basically that same thing that I would sing it over and over, and it was called, I might look it up here real quick. It's called Always, but that was the same thing of like, your help is coming, my help is on the way. And I couldn't remember the name of the song or other words other than that. And I've thought about that now, that was God telling me that, your help is coming, but you also have to step into that. It's not just going to magically appear. You have to do the work. You have to go through the steps, and it takes work. It really does. It takes work to actually heal.
Yes, it does. That does not just happen. It's not just given to anybody. No matter what their healing journey looks like, they have to actually go on it and have the intention to heal. So who sings Always?
Here, let me look it up. I've got it right here on my playlist.
Well, you're looking that up. And for the longest time, like I actually had to stop calling God God because I couldn't get past the God we were raised with.
Uh-huh.
God that says, what? I'm here to save you. And from what? From what I'm going to do to you if you don't open. Like that
Yeah.
one. Anyways, so
but yeah, no, I found that song. It says, I will not fear the war, I will not fear the storm. My help is on the way. My help is on the way. And then it says, oh my God, he will not delay. My God will come through always. So it was just like, for me, it was just a prophetic word there saying that, like, I had waited so long for this this finally to be free of it, to be free of my past and be free of this constant feeling of worthlessness. And that it actually was God coming to save me. Nobody else can do it. We have to do it ourselves through God. We have the power within ourselves to heal ourselves.
Right. And, I do not think God comes to save us. I think we come to a place where God is. So to finish my story there, I had to go to source for a while, like source, because I could not separate the punishment God we were raised with an all loving God. So I had to go with source for a year or so. Okay. So exactly. I think source is always there. It's loving and infinite. It's there for us. But we have to make that choice to become one with source, which is God in us. Source is in us. We are loving, infinite beings.
Absolutely.
We are made in a fractal image of source, and it is there. And so I have, I think that's what we forget, because we go with the punishment God that we were brought with, not realizing that is not the true God. God is love.
Yeah, he's not just sitting up there waiting for us to make another mistake.
So he could throw us off our pedestal. God is all loving, all the time, every time, waiting for us to find that in us, because we're fractal images of God, of source, and coming back to our creator. That's exactly what I think it is meant by all of that.
Yeah.
It's beautiful. And it really is beautiful.
Absolutely.
But you have to separate it. One time I was telling these people, these girls that I was going to church with, afterwards, we were having a snack. I told them my story of leaving the church. And this older minister that is very well loved, very well looked up to from in their circles. I didn't know him at all. He stopped by our table and he said, Amanda, I just want to tell you, he said, it is amazing. I heard your story, and it's amazing that you could leave something like that and still have a faith or a belief in God. He said, because a lot of people throw that out.
A lot of people don't.
No, but I know why they don't. It is very difficult. So absolutely. I think that, once again, I think finding that source creator that we came from, that the fractal image that we're made of, that is infinite love, that is beautiful.
Yes. And knowing that, just it's been told to me too, that sometimes we look at God through the lens of our earthly father. And so that's another way to look at it is, that's not the healthy way. That's not God.
No. Okay. But I have a really good relationship with my father, and having children, has opened me up. And so this God that some people talk about, refer to, that would throw his children into a fiery pit of hell forever. Like, really? No, let's be honest again. I don't think so. I would never do that to my child. And if God loves me infinitely more than I could love my children, okay, infinitely more, and I couldn't even throw my children into a firing pit of hell. Hello? God's not going to do that to me either. So
no, he wants everybody to be in heaven with him. He doesn't want anybody to not be there. So that's my belief on it.
I think, finding that once again, that we're made in a fractal image of God, and that finding that peace within us, and coming back to that all loving infinite source. I love it. Exactly.
Yeah.
So with that, Waylon, do you have any questions?
I don't think I have questions. I do have, while you were talking about your struggles with finding yourself after leaving the church, and three different phrases came to me: worthlessness, boundaries, and lack of education. I think those three things contribute significantly to all of the people who find themselves in a situation like this. Probably all of us who leave, actually. And I was just thinking about that, the level of complete worthlessness that we leave the church with.
Yeah.
I think we're in the church with it. We don't realize it until we leave. And then at that point, we're like, oh no, like there's nothing left here. I don't
Yeah.
hardly even exist.
You feel as if, well, in my case, when I left, I had so many things that I felt wounded for already, that then
Mhm.
I felt like I was being punished even more. Like, okay, here's your punishment now. Take your punishment. That what we say we're doing in love, because that's the reason they do it. They say they're doing it in love. Felt like everything but love. Like
Right.
that to me there. How could it possibly be love to your own blood when when for one thing you won't eat with them at a table now? One of the most intimate things
Right.
that you can do with your family is share a meal, get together and eat together.
Yeah.
That's where you talk about things, that's where you communicate. So you can't do that. And then when you walk into a room, everybody goes silent.
Yeah.
I have had that happen so many times where everybody stops talking. And I'm just like, well, what are you talking about? And it's come to it could be church things, because they don't talk about church things in front of ex members. And then, whatever, maybe something that I've done. I don't know, but I quit worrying about that. But anyway, it's the fact that there's no, it's like going to a different country almost, but
Yeah.
these people.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. And then the boundaries, I think, and I think that is one thing that, well, I didn't know how to set boundaries. When I left the church, boundaries were just foreign to me. I didn't know anything about it. And so people could walk all over me, and yeah, it was.
I was the same way. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, yeah, the first, and what's kind of sad about it is, like, I look back on the guy that I left with on the truck. He thought it was funny, but he said, "My friend thinks you're like 12 years old." And I was like, wow, you know, that I looked that young. And also, like, how sad is that I would do that with somebody
Mhm.
that, I don't know, just stupid. I was in a desperate attempt of searching. I
Yeah.
felt like for years, and I think we could all probably relate to that, is we go searching for something. Um, that song, I'm not sure who sings. I relate a lot of my life to songs and lyrics of songs and stuff. And so this song, I still haven't found what I'm looking for. It's a real old
Yeah.
song. Anyway, but I felt that song would come to me at different phases in my life, like the last 19 years. I was like, that's so true. And now, I'm finally getting to that place of, oh wow, like I found what I didn't know that
Yeah.
I left for. I'm finally finding what I was searching for.
Yeah.
Uh, so
I was.
it took a long time to get that piece, though.
Yeah. And I think it's not uncommon for people to never find it. I know I have acquaintances who have left that seems like they never found the peace, never found the whatever that is. I think that was U2 maybe that sings that, but
It might be. I'd
I
have
still
to
haven't
look.
found what I'm looking for. Yeah.
Yeah.
Who sings
Yeah.
it? Who sings it?
Um,
Yeah, I think,
U2.
yeah, you're right. Hmm.
You too.
That's the name of the band. Yeah.
There's some people that,
TOO or TWO?
no, you too.
Okay.
You and the number 2.
Yep.
You too.
Where have you been all your life, Amanda?
Not listening to you two, apparently. Don't judge. Don't judge. Okay.
Oh no. I just tell people, they'll ask me about old movies, and I'm like, listen, I didn't start watching TV till like 2000, whatever, and they're like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
I listen to orchestra music, so like,
That's nice.
yeah, I love it.
Well,
Yep. Well, I really appreciate you sharing your story with us.
well, I've enjoyed speaking with both of you. I feel like it's been very healing talking about this. So I
Yeah.
appreciate it. I appreciate what you guys are doing. I think our stories are very pivotal in helping others and helping ourselves.
Yeah, we just had somebody contact us that they are married to an ex-Holdeman, and they said it's been very interesting and very kind of affirming to just listen to all these stories, because suddenly they understand what their spouse has been facing all these years. So
Mhm. Well, that'll be interesting to hear from their perspective of it.
He wasn't comfortable with her coming on and sharing, so unfortunately, that's not going to be happening.
Oh, okay.
yeah.
We told her that was very normal. A lot of, a lot of our guests have been Canadian. And so it's not terribly uncommon for the American side of the Holdemans to not be ready to speak out. So I was so excited to find out when I found out you had a Southern accent, that you were from the States, because we do not have very many Americans that come on. Those Canadians, though, they're all about it, which
they're like, we want the deliverance.
Yes,
they want the deliverance.
Yes. Dennis says it's because they're more educated than we are, and that's why they're happy to just be more comfortable with who they are.
Well, I guarantee that has something to do with it. And I mean, a part of me was very nervous too, because you're like, well, what is this going to change for me? But at some point, I've come to the conclusion, I'm like, this, like you said earlier, I am not saying anything that I would not tell you in person. If you would come and speak to me and ask me whether you are a Holdeman member now or not, I will tell you the same thing, because I finally know who I am, and I don't care to stand up for what I believe in. So if you're willing to say something to somebody to their face, I think we need to be willing to tell each other, because you don't know what you could be saving somebody else from by just saying, I've been there. I know what you're going through. I know that you're lonely, because I've been lonely so many times in my life that I felt like I had nobody that would ever really understand me. Because I've not had much association at all with ex members, like very, very, very briefly through the years. And it's been off and on. So I've never had like a steady connection with anybody that's also left. The one friend that I was gonna go see in Indiana, she her life, she's been completely transformed as well. She has amazing children that have started getting married now, and it's just awesome. It's awesome to see. And we've started kind of reconnecting a little bit this past summer, a little more. So I'm excited to have her back as a friend, because for years we parted ways. So
And she's a current member?
no, she left. She left as well. So
You know, and that's the thing. There you can anybody that's listening to this, exactly. If you know, don't feel alone. If you feel alone, find us. You can reach out to us on social media. You can
absolutely.
find out our names. It's not that hard. I mean, I'm Amanda Esau, if you want
Oh
to
no,
find me.
I found you.
Okay, right. You know, like you can find us and then you can
Uh-huh.
say, hey, I want to talk. Hey,
Yeah.
no, I heard the podcast and I was so like, it sounds like I'm not alone. No, you're not alone. We're
No,
out
and
here. We've all made our lives. It looks differently and it's okay.
yeah, and it's like I also I've gotten past the point that I want to see them like face the consequences of anything that they've done. That's not for me. I'm not gonna fight
That's
that.
low vibration.
Yeah. So but just the fact that being able to say that even though, my journey is completely different now. Like I have no ill feelings toward you. Like I would love to have a better relationship with my family, and it really has gotten a lot better through the years. It just took a while, and I know that some of it was on my part because I would almost ostracize myself from them. And yeah. So it wasn't all them some of the time. It was me doing it to myself.
Right. Absolutely. Okay. Well, I enjoyed it. Thank you so much for sharing.
Thank you guys. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. And like I said, if there's anybody out there listening that wants to reach out to us, please do. If you want to come on and share your story, because everybody sharing their story has given you the courage to do so, please reach out to us and just come on and share your story. That's the whole idea, is to just bring our stories out into the light so that others know that they're not alone, no matter what their pathway looks like.
That's right. And all of us and give grace to each other. That's also a love thing, being able to say, hey, your journey is not like mine, but that's okay. Like I'm not, I don't
I
want
don't
to
judge you.
continue a rift between any of us anymore. Like if your journey isn't like mine, that's all right.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Have a good evening.
You too.
Thank you for listening. It is an honor to connect with our guests, and we wish the best for them as well as our listeners. Remember to like and subscribe for more episodes. Our People can be found on all major podcast platforms as well as YouTube. If you are interested in sharing your story, please contact us at ourpeoplepodcastteam@gmail.com. Thank you.